After months of Russian military buildup, warnings of an impending invasion from the intelligence community and denials from the Kremlin, Russia invaded Ukraine in a multi-pronged attack on Thursday morning. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared the start of a special military operation, and Russian troops started crossing into Ukraine from the north, from Belarus, and the south, from Crimea, according to Ukrainian sources. Then explosions were heard in multiple Ukrainian cities, including the capital, Kyiv, and the second largest city, Kharkiv. This has triggered the greatest security crisis in Europe since the Cold War. The US military believes that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is the largest conventional conflict in Europe since World War II. NATO's Secretary General says that peace on the European continent has been shattered. And in response to this full-scale invasion, NATO has raised the readiness of its rapid response force. Countries have put troops on standby, they've deployed military units, planes and ships to the region, and the US says that it has no intention of sending troops into Ukraine because it's not a NATO member, and that's key, but instead President Biden will bolster the presence of US troops in NATO countries and, along with the EU and the UK, apply heavier sanctions against Russia.
Ой, Боже. Давай, Игорь! Давай. Игорь! Побежали.
Блядь, их тут реально дохуя. Вот еще летят.
What we're seeing right now is a full-scale invasion of the country of Ukraine by Russian forces ordered in by Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is the worst conflict we've seen in Europe in decades. We're seeing tanks rolling across the border, we're seeing missile attacks across Ukraine, and we're seeing at most recent count 137 civilians and Defence Force personnel killed in Ukraine. What's driving this is the fact that the Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to retake an old empire. He was born in the Soviet era where Russia controlled all the states to its west. He wants that world back again. He believes that it's his job, now that he's getting older as an autocrat, to retake that empire and to turn Ukraine into a vassal state, a buffer state between Russia and the West. In many ways, it's like going back to the Cold War era. What we've seen so far are financial sanctions against Vladimir Putin and the people around him, also against Russian banks. They're really trying to hit those plutocrats where it hurts, in their wallets. Now, the jury's out on whether that's actually going to succeed. What we're seeing is no talk about United States, European, NATO forces going in to turn what's happening in Ukraine into something more like World War II. We're not seeing that. There's this hope, yet to be borne out, that financial sanctions will do the job instead. Australia is joining the global sanctions against Russia. It's identified the people around Vladimir Putin and it's imposing travel bans, financial sanctions. Now, there's not really much clarity about whether those can work. We've seen sanctions imposed on these people in the past. There's another thing that Prime Minister Scott Morrison's doing, and this is very interesting because it's a different step. He's announced that there'll be some military equipment and medical supplies sent to Ukraine. It's not clear yet how they'll get there, who will actually send them into Ukraine. But I think that's another Australian commitment that does show a level of support, not just symbolic, but practical as well, for the people of Ukraine when they're under attack.
Russia has now launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine and things are changing very quickly, but here's a timeline of what we know has happened so far. At just before 6 in the morning Moscow time, President Putin gave a speech announcing a military operation in Ukraine's eastern Donbass region. He warned that anyone trying to interfere would face consequences greater than any in history. At 6:45, explosions were heard in the eastern city of Mariupol, and at 7:15, there were explosions reported in the capital city, Kiev. Emergency sirens there have been activated and people have been taking shelter in underground metro stations. By 9 a.m, Ukrainian soldiers said they were coming under attack from Russian troops moving in from Belarus in the north. 5 minutes later, and Ukraine's President Zelensky announced martial law, which basically means that the military temporarily takes control. By 11:35, security footage was released, which seemed to show Russian troops moving into Ukraine from Crimea in the south. That would suggest Ukraine is coming under attack from its north, east, and southern borders. As of right now, Ukrainian officials say at least 40 people have died.